Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, wellbeing, and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal wellbeing. Welcome to the 210th episode of the award-winning Diverse Minds podcast, and a huge welcome to September, a new month and podcast series. This month, we're focusing on writing and wellbeing. And speaking of sharing stories, have you watched my TEDx talk about the connection between culture, race, and mental health? Well, it's live, and it's something you can watch in your break as it's just 12 minutes long. The link is in the show notes, but I'll also give it to you here. It's bit.ly/TEDx Wolves. That's WOLVESLO. I really hope you enjoy it because it was a labor of love. And if you enjoyed it, please leave positive comments on YouTube, share, and like. Also, don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter at Diverse Minds UK. And on LinkedIn, it's my name. Right, so why writing and mental health? So we've had series on arts and mental health and reading and mental health, but not writing. And interestingly, I don't think of myself as someone who is a writer, but during lockdown, I joined some free online writing classes with the published author Masuda Snaith. And check out her episode number 51, A Writer's Journey, for more information about her work and her journey as a Bangladeshi woman who identifies as being working class and breaking into the industry of being an author. And actually, I found the writing really cathartic and creative, so I've kept going. So in fact, I started in April 21 and it went on, and I wanted to explore this further as a topic. And if we think about the research and what's the evidence around this, there is a social psychologist who was at the University of Texas in Austin, and in 1986, he studied the impact of a certain kind of writing on mental health, and his name was James Pennebaker. Since then, there have been actually over 200 research studies that have reported that, quote unquote, what's known as emotional writing, so not necessarily as a job or with a publishing goal at the end of it, can improve people's physical and emotional health and therefore mental well-being. And in many studies that were carried out, subjects wrote about specific upheavals for 15 minutes a day for 3 or 4 days and visited doctors for health concerns. And in these studies, subjects who wrote about personal upheavals for 15 minutes a day found that they visited doctors for health concerns, physical health concerns, less frequently and reported greater psychological well-being. And in 2019, there was a study entitled Expressive Writing to Improve Resilience Trauma. And it was a clinical feasibility study by Northwestern in the US. And it was a 6-week writing intervention. And it showed that increases resilience and decreases depressive symptoms. And if you want to read the paper, I've put a link in the show notes. And it also showed that people were able to ruminate less in terms of their trauma over the past year, and 35% of the participants who took part in the program had far fewer indicators of clinical depression, and that they didn't meet the diagnostic criteria for clinical depression having taken part in this program. So this is really great. And if we think about diagnosis and mental ill health conditions in terms of diagnosis under a medical framework, there clearly is an impact. And remember, there are over 200 studies. Studies are carried out differently. They don't always encompass all the cultures. Also, many of these studies are conducted in English. So it's really important to look at this as a broader spectrum. And actually thinking about that, writing is a really broad word and encompasses a number of ways that we can do this. So I really hope you're enjoying the content of this podcast and want to keep up to date. And if you are, please, why not join my bi-monthly newsletter? When you do, you'll receive a free 200 podcast episode guide with clickable links to take you directly to the episodes. And that link is bit.ly/DMPG23. So let's think about the broad context of writing. And we know that when bottling up emotions, this can often lead us to more distress. Often we do that because we think there's no one to listen, we don't want to share it, our issues aren't important enough, we should be able to deal with it. But writing is pretty much a free and private way to dissect emotions and make sense of them. And it's also a way to increase self-awareness, enabling us to become more aware of our traits, behaviors, feelings, beliefs, what our values and motivations might be. And if we can take that time to focus on ourselves and how things might align or not align with our internal values and standards, it can be really useful. And I think it's a case of little and often, because having an oversight over a period of time can give us deeper insight into our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and beliefs, but also how we've managed challenges and what we've learned from them. So let's think about these different ways of writing for well-being. First of all, we have daily journaling, and this has become incredibly popular. Lots of chat about this, lots of journals you can buy, lots of memes and inspirational quotes on Instagram, and indeed most social media platforms. So, writing in a diary or journal can be free form. It can also be guided by certain questions if you buy mental health journals. Last year I spoke to the wonderful Rosemary Ikpeme about mind maps, MYND. So do check out that episode. So she has a specific diary that she's created about well-being because when she was going through a tough time, she couldn't find anything that suited her. Also, do check out my episode with Ella Mesma and Amarouche, who talk about dancing and mental health. And Ella has a brilliant journal called Journal to Joy, and I've been using that for a number of years. And there's specific questions in there. So it can be more guided or it can be free writing as well. But really, it's about specific exercises. It's about writing in a journal, can focus on recording events, what you're grateful for, what's going on, things that you're looking forward to, and setting the tone for the day. And this is, all writing is an incredibly personal and individualized experience. So some journaling you can also do with a mental health professional. And then sort of linked to journaling, it could be journaling, it might be separate. But a really great book that I've been reading and I really admire, she's brilliant, is Kathy Retzenbrink. And she's written The Manual for Heartache. So that's a brilliant book. And also her more recent book, which is Write It All Down. And it's for people who want to publish memoirs, but there's lots of great tips in it that she shares about free writing. And that's writing for a minimum of 5 minutes without censoring yourself and seeing what emerges. So literally just getting a pen and paper and writing things down. And often when you do writing courses or prompts for writing teachers or writing professionals will often say, if you can't think of anything, you just write, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, and things will come forward. You might like to use a prompt. So it might be something like, I'm looking at things I can see out of my window, and simply to see what emerges. And this is quite a good download. I know people who keep free writing journal by their bed, and when they wake up, they'll just write a dissection of their dreams, and that can help you process what's going on. The third thing is reflective writing. So writing reflectively involves critically analyzing an experience. So this could be, I think, quite good if you're an overthinker or if you like to dwell or ruminate on things, recording what happened, how it impacted you, and what you plan to do with this new knowledge. It can be really useful to get out of your head and on the page and for you to take a step back from what's happened. It's very cerebral, so different to free writing where you're kind of accessing those unconscious thoughts and ideas and just letting yourself go. Reflective writing can be much more intentional and much more shaped, and there can be a lot more form to it, where free writing you can put spelling, punctuation and grammar out the window. But reflective writing can really help you reflect on that deeper level and thinking about, what's the next steps that I want to take. And then fourthly, creative writing, which many of us have done at school. And that's really the classes and things that I've been doing is creative writing. So poems, short stories, again, writing prompts, that can all be creative, sharing them if you feel comfortable to in a group. And I think that's so powerful. Using imagery, memory. And the really great thing about creative writing is there's kind of poetic truth, and there's the truth that's things that have happened, and poetic truth and how you can change things. And Jim Hall, who's one of my writing teachers who we're going to be speaking to next week in next week's episode, he has this really great phrase where he talks about where the sea can become sky and vice versa. So how we can change things to convey meaning and using metaphors. It's a really great way to explore thoughts, feelings, ideas, and beliefs. You can hone into a specific genre that you like, and it's not about being good. And I think it can also really help process things like grief. I mean, all writing can. Things that feel too complicated, you can personify objects and then give them a voice. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It really helps people to choose words, images, captures what you're conveying. You don't have to be raw and put yourself in it. I think the sharing process and hearing other people's journeys can also be really, really useful. And again, it can really boost self-esteem and mental health. So, in this series, we're going to be talking about these different styles of writing, also what workplaces can do to encourage people to do writing as part of their mental well-being and mental ill health recovery journeys. And writing has been shown to support daily mental well-being and mental health recovery journeys in certain situations. It supports self-awareness and alignment to values. It's a way to give yourself time and space before the day kicks off, or to download at the end of the day, especially when we don't have much time. You don't have to spend hours doing it. 5 minutes can really make a difference. It's also not about being perfect and a best-selling author overnight. It's about building a skill and a muscle and actually just getting yourself into a different space, because it's a way to be creative when as adults we often have very little time to do this. So if you need and want more support with your mental health work as an organization, and well, please do get in touch. And do join me next week and the continuing weeks for the series, where we'll be speaking to a number of writers, giving you tips and ideas for writing for well-being. And if you enjoyed this episode, please, why not leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast from, and do share and like on social media. And some resources for you: episode 86, Diverse Minds podcast on reading, why reading benefits your mental health; episode 51, A Writer's Journey with Masuda Snaith; episode 159, Why Personal Development is Important; and Harvard Business Review article, How Writing Can Help Us Heal from Trauma; and an article from The Independent, How Writing Can Help Heal Your Mental Wellbeing. So I really look forward to this series. I hope that you'll join me. And until next time, everyone, take care.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.